Hey guys, Jackdaw here. One of the most alarming statements made by anonymous BioWare employees who are currently working on the next Dragon Age game has been the remark that the next game is planned with a live service component built for long-term gameplay and revenue. Like me, I suspect you have questions regarding what exactly a live service Dragon Age 4 may entail. While we don't have all the answers currently, thanks to Jason Schreier's article on the past and present of Dragon Age, we certainly have an idea what the next game may look like when it comes to live service. Regardless, I feel like it's even more necessary to have this conversation on BioWare's live service future, having watched the debacle of Anthem's post-launch content and what BioWare hopefully learned from Anthem's experience going forward with Dragon Age 4. You see, Anthem's live service model was originally going to follow story-based content after the base game launched. The content would follow the main narrative in many different directions, with new areas, bosses, dungeons, characters' stories, and of course cosmetics for our Javelin suit. In pre-production, Anthem's story had been produced with live service in mind, so the developers could easily write, change, and create many different plot points and narratives in future content to come. Anthem was originally planned to follow a deep content roadmap that would have the players still engaged with Anthem 10 years after launch. However, Anthem's original, idealistic live service model didn't come to fruition due to only 18 months of development time, which is almost the same production time of Mass Effect Andromeda. Just before Anthem finally shipped in February of 2019, the post-launch content was staged in acts that would serve up the live service model of Anthem. The first act was called Echoes of Reality and would last around a couple of months, providing constant new missions, strongholds, and completely new world dynamics. The act would then end on a huge update called the Cataclysm, which would add many new different dynamics to Anthem's world, granting the player much more content and customization for their Javelin suits. Unfortunately, this roadmap was again too idealistic and was cancelled after heavy delays of the Cataclysm event. The entire stages of Anthem's acts was completely canned, and it's fair to say that BioWare's first attempt at a live service model didn't go according to plan. Hopefully, the unsuccessful launch of Anthem's live service model does speak volume for BioWare's future titles, and that the developers have learned from that experience. It is worth stating that Anthem isn't completely dead and BioWare haven't abandoned ship. They've actually remained adamant on working out how Anthem can stay afloat, as a small production team at BioWare Austin work on the preliminary design of Anthem 2.0 or Anthem Next, a complete rework of Anthem, ensuring that this game can at least attempt to be what it had originally planned to be. In spite of that, I know for a fact every Dragon Age fan watching this video or who have played Anthem can look at this style of a live service model and see that Anthem's model wouldn't easily cross over into a Dragon Age game. You would have to completely change Dragon Age from the entirety to even match this sort of live service model. Anthem is a multiplayer game with a heavy emphasis on gameplay as opposed to story and narrative. While the game does have a main story with all the BioWare trimmings of lore and a huge codex, the general reason you play Anthem is to kill, loot, and then customize your Javelin suit. This gameplay loop can easily be continued with the live service model BioWare were going for, adding new content like levels, enemies, bosses, worlds, cosmetics, etc. Whereas for Dragon Age, the player's experience is deeper than just gameplay. There are many reasons we all play Dragon Age. My experiences have been driven by the story, as I, and solely I, make impactful choices and consequences throughout the world, building dynamic relationships with many of the game's characters, and going to the lengths of actually having a deeper, intimate relationship with those characters too. Anthem's live service model reflects a very different perspective, so what could BioWare do, or how are BioWare going to gauge Dragon Age 4's live service model? What could it entail? Well, according to Jason Schreier, as he talked with many anonymous BioWare employees, we're not sure about the details, and in fact, they're likely still being decided, as the game is still very early in development and could evolve based on the negative reception to Anthem. If it does turn out to be an online game, which seems likely, it would be shocking if you couldn't play the bulk of it by yourself. One person close to the game told Jason that Morrison, which is Dragon Age 4's new iteration codename since the previous iteration was rebooted for live service. Morrison's critical path or main story would be designed for single player, and the goal of the multiplayer elements would be to keep players engaged so that they would actually stick with post-launch content. Some ideas Jason heard floating for Morrison's multiplayer include companions that can be controlled by multiple players via drop-in, drop-out co-op, similar to old-school BioWare RPGs like Baldur's Gate, and quests that could change based not just on one player's decision, but on the choices of players across the globe. They have a lot of unanswered questions, plus I know it's going to change like 5 times in the next 2 years. The trouble with Dragon Age 4 being live service or being online is that the game is predominantly single player, and while there is a multiplayer mode in Inquisition, no one plays Dragon Age 4 multiplayer. Absolutely no one. And while I do respect the fact that the multiplayer mode is fun to play with friends, it's not the main reason we all play Dragon Age. As I said before, there are many personal reasons each of us play the series, from escapism to fantasy fulfillment and everything in between. In the community, Dragon Age is more than just a game. We identify with many of the characters and we're shaped by so many of the experiences Dragon Age offers. Diversification of a live service model or multiplayer in the 4th entry of a single player RPG that is huge and renowned for its single player choices and consequences just sounds like a recipe for a disaster in my opinion. While in theory, the idea of a drop-in, drop-out co-op system in Dragon Age 4 sounds somewhat okay, and I personally would say I wouldn't find that to be too bad. I wouldn't mind if Saria was able to join my game and play as one of the characters while we goof around the world. The issue with that is everything else that multiplayer implicates, which is not okay. You see, what multiplayer implicates is, if this system is embedded into the game, then Dragon Age 4 could be an always online game, and therefore it will be running on servers. If Anthem serves as an example of that, then that means there will be no offline play, there will be long loading screens, and there will be an almost unplayable launch day. How can Dragon Age 4 follow a live service model and at the same time appeal to the majority of their single player fans? That's not a rhetorical question, because I do have 3 approaches BioWare could likely follow. And these aren't just random whims or guesses, these are ones that I have logistically looked at their previous games and what they have done to add live service or a multiplayer into their franchise. Firstly, we have the Andromeda Approach. In Mass Effect Andromeda, Ryder had a small unit called Strike Teams. They act like Inquisition's war table mechanic, where you can send out groups of NPCs into the world for rewards, however you have to wait a long time for them to do it. But in Andromeda, you actually have a secondary option, and that is the player can actually take over and override these missions for themselves, and they are then taken to the multiplayer mode to assume full security over the mission succession, where they actually get the reward straight away and they don't have to wait a couple of hours to succeed that reward. Dragon Age 4 could follow suit to this and have a new war table mechanic that enacts live service content. Perhaps you're given an incentive to take on side missions in multiplayer with other people. However, just like Andromeda's method, if you would rather not do that, you can just send out NPCs to do that task with a longer time limit for that reward. And perhaps you just have certain missions that are exclusive to the multiplayer component of that. Even still, this multiplayer mode, while being connected to the single player, would be a disattached component, meaning that you could probably play the game offline and not have access to those multiplayer missions. This to me sounds like the most okay approach for the majority of the fans if we have to have multiplayer and live service in the games. Second approach is the Anthem Approach. You see, Anthem's approach to live service followed a single-player hub-based world where you take on many key choices and story scenes with each of the characters, but once you enter the open world or you choose a quest or main mission, the player is then automatically put into a lobby. Now, while you can play the missions or explore the entire world solo, you are still playing the game online. It's always online play and it's always on servers. You cannot just go and play Anthem offline. fine, regardless of playing it solo or not. You see, there's a difference between playing it solo and playing it single player. Hypothetically, if Dragon Age 4 followed this exact approach, the player would have a single player based hub, like a castle, a new fort, a camp, some kind of Tevinter stronghold, a ship, whatever you guys want. I'm also just adding to that fantasy too. But we would have that single player hub where we could engage with our allies, have a little bit of romance here and there, and further the main story in smaller scenes. However, when continuing the main missions or exploring the entire world, we would then have to go through a lobby to continue the adventure either solo or with friends on always online servers with no offline play. This would certainly not be a good experience in my opinion. It just wouldn't be Dragon Age that we know and love today. And finally, we have the ideal approach. My ideal approach to live service is, of course, way too optimistic as usual, but I'm throwing it out there because you all deserve to hear it, and because Ubisoft did this in Assassin's Creed, so that means if Ubisoft can do it, anyone can do it, right? I'd love Dragon Age 4's live service model to follow many post-launch story-based DLCs, adding to the narrative continually after we complete the main story. Perhaps you have smaller content added monthly, like new enemies, quests, areas, etc., and larger story-based content 3 to 4 months after launch and then onwards. This is exactly what live service should be in my opinion. The game is then kept alive with more quests and story DLCs, giving the game breadth, and if done successfully, this could be what a live service RPG should be, with more content coming for months, expanding on the original story with actual proper content that the fans want to digest and actually would justify paying for it. Now, I know I may sound quite cavalier about the whole live service Dragon Age 4 ordeal, and that I may sound like I am justifying live service. I most certainly am not. I just trust in the BioWare developers and their knowledge of their games, and more importantly, their fans. You know, me and you. And this is just something that I haven't stopped talking about, but it's still worth reiterating, that the BioWare developers are looking with an eye to what the fans love about Dragon Age. The main team working on Dragon Age 4 created the Trespasser DLC. That's John Epler's narrative direction, with Patrick Weeks as the lead writer. Yes, I do get worried when I do hear the terms live service Dragon Age 4 and Anthem with dragons, but ultimately that is just unplaced fear. In reality, the BioWare developers know their fanbase more than anyone in this world, and they will most certainly cater to our needs for the next Dragon Age game. I know this topic is rather barren at the moment. We don't really have a clearer picture of what Dragon Age 4 will look like or what BioWare learned from Anthem's live service, but we've just got to look at the facts that EA hasn't cancelled Anthem and has actually allowed the developers to rework the game from the ground up. And we've most importantly got to trust the epic BioWare developers who've been at the studio since Dragon Age Origins and are working on the next installment to the best of their ability. There are so many talented individuals working on Dragon Age 4 that you just need to watch my Everything We Know on Dragon Age 4's development so far video to fully grasp what I'm talking about. There are just so many amazing individuals working on the Dragon Age franchise right now that they honestly have my hope and my trust. I'm sure that we'll touch upon live service in the future, indubiously. But for now, let's just focus on supporting the people creating the next Dragon Age rather than fear what may or may not transpire in the next game. When we know more about live service, I'll be sure to have another chat about it with you all then. But let me know your thoughts on how BioWare can handle Dragon Age 4's live service model. What do you foresee? Do you have any ideas on how this can be done really well without as much controversy or as much backlash? Tell me your thoughts down below. But before I leave you, I stream on Twitch literally 3 times a week now. If you would like to catch any of my live streams, make sure you give me a follow, linked in the description down below. On behalf of For the Fans, by the Fans, I am also super excited to promote Dragon Age Fanforges. Fanforges are contests run by artists. The best designs win awesome prizes and have their artwork actually printed on merch, where the artist actually earns a commission of each piece sold. How awesome is that? You can check out the previous greatest winner designs on their website, which is linked in the description down below. Why not support a local Dragon Age artist today? I get nothing from this other than the sheer good vibes of supporting someone in our local community. Until the next one, guys, make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, like me on Facebook. All my links are in the description down below. But I have been Jackdaw, and I should go. Whoa, 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 whoa.